Here is an attempt to be healthy, and there is a lizard. This is zucchini pasta with Trader Joe's yellow curry sauce. Super lazy, super yummy. Got some juice. The essential juice place. And I got my bike helmet. This one was the most cozy. And I was thinking about my video earlier today and how I just look kind of bloated and over-medicated, and I really noticed that watching myself, and it seems like this side of my face is more paralyzed than usual, so maybe I really am experiencing this over-medicated thing that the Hardy Nutritionals people were talking about. I think I need to be a little bit easier on myself and how I feel. But at the same time, it's difficult because I'm in this beautiful place and I want to feel awesome and make the most of it. But I'm finding I'm just sort of getting through it. And I'm still feeling like I'm making a lot out of it. But I don't know. I don't know what I want. I'm not sure what it is exactly, but perhaps this is good, because even I will see for myself if there's some kind of transformation from all of this. Because before it was just kind of like blah, 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 and going on. And then I had that crisis, and then I came to California, then I had another mini crisis, and then I've been taking that extra medication, and now I'm trying to come off medication. So it's just, I want to feel good already. It's been a long year since I was hospitalized, and it's a journey towards not being afraid of myself. I'm really thankful for the dark and the quiet. I can see maybe 4 houses in the distance, and that's about it. So it's interesting how possible intentions to drive to Vegas and see Celine Dion, and then today I was going to go to a different town and rollerblade, turn into just going to buy a helmet and doing laundry. So from Celine Dion and rollerblading, or just Celine Dion it would have been, and then just rollerblading at least, goes to laundry. And I'd like to take the perspective of what the Hardy Nutritionals people are telling me, that I'll start to feel over-medicated while taking their vitamins and my medications, but I still have to taper off the medications slowly. I think part of it too, though, is just being away from my family and my community for 2 months. I probably have only had a couple of hugs since I've been here. Maybe a handful, when usually I would get quite a number per week. So I'm definitely deficient in the hug department. I'm suffering from hug deficiency disorder, and just not being around all the people I care about most and the people that care about me. So I think these next 8 weeks will be really telling. What am I going to do to get through it? I'll have my laundry done, so that's something. And today was the first day I didn't eat cinnamon toast. That really good bread from Trader Joe's. I think I've turned into a piece of cinnamon toast. So today I had muesli, but no cinnamon toast. And I did make 2 cups of bulletproof coffee, which was just grass-fed butter and coffee. And I had some cashews and an apple and another apple. And for dinner I made some eggs, and I haven't made eggs in 2 months or longer. I just feel like it'd be good to cut down on the sugar for a while. These little flies like to land on my head. I felt really bad because I was watching a video the other night, and this little fly kept flying in my face, and I kept shooing it and kept shooing it and kept shooing it for like an hour. Finally I saw it landed on my jacket, and I decided to flick it, and I realized after I did that there's no way it survived. Like, it was this tiny little fly, and I felt bad because I think I killed it, and I didn't want to kill it, but I just didn't equate that flicking it was going to kill it. And then right after I'm like, there's no way that it lived. So now I'll just risk breathing them in or eating them. I think that's a mosquito, though. Yeah, it is. And today I sat outside for a bit, and then I was just laying in my room and reading the book On Our Own on my Kindle app. And I I saw the cutest little bumblebee. It was like a baby bumblebee. It's a big bumblebee. Not a baby bumblebee. And I saw some lizards and hi guy. Looks like you're missing some toes. And the tip of your tail is growing back. Hey? Yeah. I know you're alive and you know I'm alive too. What? You giving me the whole territorial lizard thing? Yep. It's going to be really hot out this week, so I will maybe go on some walks. Just try and take care of the basics. I feel like Maslow's hierarchy of needs comes into play. There's almost like bipolar hierarchy of needs, and when one is in certain states, it's important to just get back to the basics. I definitely feel over-medicated, and I just hope in 8 weeks that I feel good, I have energy, I look better. I think I've really noticed even more how drugged up I look. And it'll be my birthday in 2 days, and 2 days after that, it will be 10 months of self-dialogue. I was doing a little bit of self-dialogue before, but I really started doing it on June 20th of last year. And when I really look at it, I'm not that much further ahead, but I think that's part of the process. And maybe I'll try to do a bit of self-dialogue. I think I've said that a couple times, but I think if my brain is turned off, it doesn't feel good either. So maybe the self-dialogue process, even if anything else, it's good to keep the brain exercised, because otherwise it seems like the brain gets kind of numb. So maybe I'll grab my notebook and see if there's anything I want to talk about today. So I'm going to talk about a couple of these things, even though I don't really feel the energy of it. And this would be more an experiment in seeing if going back into it will help to fire up my brain. If reading and talking about some of the stuff that I wrote in a higher state might actually allow my brain to go back into that state. Because I've found often when I go to the edge of insight and beauty, there's often a retraction at some point. It seems to be part of the process, taking 2 steps forward and then taking a step back. I think I already talked about how in my old writing from Mania 6 years ago, I wrote a note saying that language is alive and always there. And I think that's a clue into this language of beauty or this other language, and part of that language is actually the art of creating new language and making new meaning and new language. I was talking a lot about language and beauty and things like that. And I think I also wrote, each moment is either new beauty or old thought. And that other language that's always there is sort of the language of life speaking to us. And when life speaks to us, it shows us how beautiful life is. And can we speak as this voice of life, sharing how beautiful life is? Right now I definitely don't feel that, but I also have a sense that there's something painting over this beauty of life. I feel like when perception changes to the peripheral vision as well as the focal vision, that helps us select for beauty. It's a natural selection of perception for picking out beauty in the visual field and responding and giving our attention and awareness to that, instead of the focal point that thought is making us see or not really see at all. And I feel like the sound of thought is dangerous, and that we really see this in psychosis. We see how dangerous those old sounds are and those old soundscapes. Usually, if we're lucky, we're caught in a soundscape called normal, which is the one we're most comfortable with. But we can get caught in other soundscapes because none of the soundscapes are really real and really have anything to do with anything. We have a soundscape that we call I, and when we get connected to a different soundscape, we feel scared and we wonder what's going on, when we could be equally as frightened of our own soundscape that we call I, because there's no I there. It's just this momentum of thought and thinking that makes us feel like there's some I there. But the I that's there is actually blocking our real eyes. It's blocking perception. And I wrote down that love is faster than the speed of light. And I feel this could be true because that's how miracles happen. Miracles happen faster than the speed of light. And what's the language of love? Love is that other dimension that most of us don't know anything about. We've never touched it, or never has it touched us. And I was reading David Bohm's book, Wholeness in the Implicate Order, and one of the most profound things that I read so far is that he said, nature will respond in accordance with the theory in which it's approached. It's worth repeating. Nature will respond in accordance with the theory with which it's approached. And that has everything to do with what I've been talking to myself about all this other context. How I approach the world, which seems to be one that is omnipolar. It's all over the place. It won't stay consistent, and my body and mind and emotions and all that won't respond consistently to it. Because as an omnipolar consciousness, it doesn't have that ego root to keep some kind of consistent feeling of reality. So in a way, it really needs to be approached not knowing, and that's part of this context creation, is that none of it's true. It's just wondering moment to moment and writing down the things that come to mind in that moment, but the next moment they might be false or have no relevance. So, but that's the approach. The approach is, I have no idea what will arise in consciousness or what insights will come to mind. And so in a way, it's sharing that approach. The self-dialogue is a way to capture that, but it's still not actually the approach to life, because the approach to life is the living, and then I'm capturing the things during the day while I'm living. So it's not even that process. It's not the harvesting of the insight process. It's self-dialogue after the fact. So in a way, I'm seeing that if my brain does go back to that on state, that neuroplastic state again, then it could be cool to capture them on video in the moment, because that would actually really show more so this process of learning by living. But part of it is captured in the moment, because a lot of it I make up on the go. So again, it's not about the content, it's more about the approach. So in a way, there's this bipolar approach to life, or this omnipolar approach to life, or this map consciousness. And I wrote down, can we map this consciousness together? And that's really an approach of having insights and speaking those insights, or sharing those insights in the moment, not sharing the me, but sharing insights from the living moment, from our relationship to reality. So usually we approach life with the ego, and so life responds egoically, and then that keeps creating this mess of egoic responses. Again, we're not speaking as the moment, and that's sort of what this omnipolar thing is. And I'm liking the word omnipolar right now, because it's not bipolar. It's not just good, bad, up, down, happy, sad. It's really a richness of the moment. It can be anything. When we call it good or bad, then it seems like it's bipolar. But if we can be with the newness of something, I feel like I breathed in a bug, I don't know. Then it can be anything. I'm gonna go get a drink. So I only spent about 10 minutes doing the self-dialogue that I was doing previously, but kind of stopped because I felt I was doing too much. And I'm already feeling kind of better. It's interesting. I feel like it might be important for me to continue self-dialogue because it's a way of relating that doesn't really exist in reality as it is now. We don't relate based on the moment. We don't speak about beauty and nature and our consciousness and that process itself. So if I don't talk to myself about that, then it's sort of negating a large area of my brain and consciousness. So it was kind of experimental to stop doing the self-dialogue. I felt like maybe I was wasting my time in California. But by not doing the self-dialogue, I'm still wasting my time in California because it seems to be kind of worse. So I can't remember when I was talking about stopping the self-dialogue and just sharing kind of what's happening with coming off these meds and stuff, but at the same time, if I just share coming off meds, I'm speaking as me and speaking as ego, and I'm not speaking as this other voice and language that wants to be given voice to or take root in a brain, even if it's just one brain. And there could be many out there with that seed happening in their brain, but it sort of needs to be sustained in terms of a new way of approaching life, maybe even a new way of approaching being a human being, really talking with oneself and really wondering and questioning with oneself, and not just as the ego, but as this something beyond that we all have access to. It's not special, it's actually quite accessible, but we spend so much time on this me thing that we don't have access to it, and the me is so meaningless, and we spend all this time trying to make meaning out of it, and we can't because it's not going to happen. The meaning only exists in something greater beyond the me, and perhaps that's part of the process too, is meaning making. I'm seeing some of the benefits that I talked about along the way that I'd never really stopped the process, so I didn't really know if it was valuable, and I still don't know for sure because it's only been a few minutes of amping it up, but it feels like it's nutrition for my brain. And if there were other people to talk to about this stuff, not even this stuff, just speak as the moment, then, or speak as insight or perceptions or whatever, then the brain would have that kind of nutrition. I feel like insight is a type of nutrition, insight that comes from perception, which is something beyond right and wrong, because if it was within that limited framework, it would have to be found out from a book. But we can access this information just with our eyes and our being, and being clear. So I feel like I will, again, put energy into self-dialogue because there seems to be value in doing it, just talking about stuff. And I really haven't written down any insights in days. So if I'm not talking to myself, I'm not really engaged. My brain isn't engaged, and it feels like it's shrinking. So it'll be interesting to see if I start to write down some insights again. And I was sitting here earlier, and that blue bird that's around, I swear I saw him trying to fly at the window and kind of missed, and then I looked and I saw his wings flapping below the window. I don't think he just wants food. I think he wants love. I think this bird is so smart. And I really feel there are neurons and genes for new language. So as new language is created, new genes are created, which are creating new neurons. And there could be neurons that exist just for new language, almost like an immune cell, how one immune cell can actually then specialize into that type of immune cell for that special antigen. But before that, it's sort of undifferentiated. I feel like there could be undifferentiated nerve cells that when they sort of start to get the vibe of this new language of insight, they start to specialize and almost create these new language brain cells and create a new area of the brain. And it's beauty. Something to do with oxytocin, and we're dopamine dominant now. As we become oxytocin dominant, it changes the brain. We actually become a new species. Just like Dr. Bruce Lipton says, there's genetic engineering genes which create new genes in the genome by need. Well, if we need new brain cells for something, and we start speaking the language of that something, it's going to create the genetics for that. Oh, as soon as I said that, I just had this sense that that's sort of what's happening in the autistic brain. Their brains are adapted for something else. They're fulfilling a need of some sort. A need to not have language used against us, maybe. So new language or new modes of language can produce new genes. Our brain needed new genes to create the bigger sized brain to be able to think abstractly and utilize language. So that process can continue. New genes can be created. And right now our brain is being used with language viruses. And what if we were using language as actual creative processes? And the virus stage could actually be part of the creative stage. Now we just need to use language in a different mode. We have all this language, we're just using it incorrectly. It's using us. And it seems like I'm using language to say language is using us, and that's part of this dialogue process. Just say it. Say, language uses me. Language creates the me. It's not even, there's no me there. Language, how it goes on autopilot in circles, creates the illusion of a me. Right now the way we use language is of the me, and it creates a me. Now if we used it differently to create a we, or a humanity, or a unity, or a oneness, or beauty, why can't we use it to create that? Or to speak to that? It's already there. Right now we think there's billions of me's, but there's all this beauty and we're not speaking to it. We don't even see it because we only see the me. Seems like my brain has gone all serious already with it too. Maybe that's part of the reason why I stopped. I didn't want to be serious, and I wrote something down about the quantum world exists. And right now it's in the scientific phase, but then they don't really know how to apply it. And it's sort of like how when they first theorized about aviation, the theories and the calculations about aviation were not the same as an airplane actually flying through the air. So I feel like they're finding this science, and a person who's omnipolar is the equivalent of the airplane flying through the air. So what is the function of the omnipolar brain? Aviation calculations were to put an airplane in the air. Quantum calculations, something with the bipolar, omnipolar brain. And I feel like they talk about how it's about possibility, and really love makes everything possible. Love makes all of this possible. So it could be that that brain state is an action of love. I don't know. To be continued.